issue we're having. Ms. Ellsworth.
Thank you. As a former Air Force officer and one who had the privilege of being involved in the 1994 White Paper, I certainly can appreciate just how much work and effort went into this document, and I'd like to commend you and everyone in the Forces and Department of National Defence who worked on it, because this is a very comprehensive and impressive document. So thank you very much. My riding is very concerned about defence and security and was involved in the town hall in advance of the defence policy review, and just 2 weeks ago we had a town hall on NATO. And one of the things that came up in that town hall was a concern for, obviously, our commitment to the alliance and, in particular, the Arctic. So I was very excited to see on page 80 that we have committed to conduct joint exercises with Arctic allies and partners and support the strengthening of situational awareness and information sharing in the Arctic, including with NATO. And so I wondered, Minister, if you could expand on that, particularly in light of the fact that we will have our NATO parliamentarians and senator allies coming to Canada to study our Arctic in September. So could you tell us what this means in a little more detail, and also share with us why it's important to Canada and why it's important to NATO as one of the 5 Arctic NATO members?
First of all, I'll explain the outlines in terms of our government's support for multilaterals and especially NATO. I was very proud. I actually just returned from Latvia. Actually, Chief and I both returned from Latvia just yesterday, where we attended our Enhanced Forward Battle Group initial operational capability parade that took place. It was a clear demonstration by Canada and alongside with the NATO Secretary General and the Latvian President and Defense Minister to be able to show visually what does it mean when NATO nations come together and making a decision, showing interoperability. But as you know, NATO does provide a tremendous capability and against Russian aggression. And at the same time, as we look at the North and our Arctic sovereignty, we will be looking at NORAD modernization as working with NATO as well. Chief, want to add anything there?
Thank you, Minister. Thanks for working on the 94 White Paper. I had to implement that one, and so it's good that we've come kind of full circle here. I'll be very brief in that it is getting increasingly difficult to separate, because of the transnational, transregional threats we face, to separate NATO and European Northern Defence and NORAD and Arctic Defence. I'm not saying for a minute that we're going to be militarizing with NATO forces in the Arctic, but it is inconceivable to imagine a large conventional conflagration in mainland Europe or Northern Europe without there being some impact on Canadian airspace, in fact, indeed a threat to Canadian airspace through NORAD. So all of that planning in terms of NORAD modernization and where we will take North American defence and how that sits and nests with our other alliance obligations to NATO is all part of what this policy asks us to do.
Fantastic, and I'm sure that when our NATO parliamentarians come to Canada in the fall, they'll be very excited to hear more about that. I also